everyone. So we're back for the next part of the Middler. Okay, leave off. Go from where we left off. They were all in the hall, weren't they, talking about the Wanderers? And more than that, the mayor leaned in towards us and lowered her voice to a whisper. Much more than that. You're aware of the horror wreaked by Wanderers the last time they ventured close to Fenniswick. My own sister was among the casualties. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Our littlest at the front began to cry. Tree's Nig started jiggling. So, the mayor took a deep breath and lifted her head. What can we do to keep ourselves safe? What's the most important rule of all? Never go beyond the boundary! Trig burst out the answer. Abso-bloomin'-lutely, Trig Crews. Never go beyond the boundary. Follow that rule and you'll be safe from Wanderers. Remember, dirty, dangerous and deceitful. All right? Yes, Mayor Anderson, we nodded. She smiled, one of those smiles where the sides of your mouth go down instead of up. So, how about we sing the boundary song to finish? Mayor Anderson rubbed her hands together. Mr. Temple, would you accompany us on the old piano? Still working, is it? Mr. Temple lifted the lid of the piano. He interlaced his fingers and turned them inside out. The clicking echoed all around the hall. Oh, and a quick reminder before we start singing. Mayor Anderson wasn't smiling anymore. She ran her tongue across the front of her teeth. Going beyond a town boundary isn't only a risk to yourself. It puts the whole of Fenniswick in danger. Your friends, your family, your neighbours, and anyone who puts Fenniswick in danger could be subject to very serious punishment indeed. So let's keep everyone safe, eh? Now carry on, Mr. Temple. The crying littlest cried even louder. Back in the classroom, Miss Conte talked all about the time before the Quiet War and what summer holidays were like then. She said people used to go to other countries on aeroplanes. I doodled a picture of an aeroplane in the bottom corner of my slate, licked my finger and rubbed it off. Sometimes I wondered if teachers didn't just make stuff up. After break, Miss Conte asked for our summer diaries. She walked between the desks, collecting them in and piling them up in her arms. I'll be reading through these this afternoon, she said, and tomorrow I'll announce the winners. I passed her mine, taking care to keep the bow straight. Thank you, Maddie. Maddie? Lindy laughed. It's Maggie, Miss Conte, not Maddie. Oh, of course it is. Sorry, Maggie. The baby had me up 4 times last night. She put my diary on the pile, then stuck 6 more right on top of it. Squashing the bone. Chapter 2. After school we changed out of our uniforms and went up to the cemetery, right out near the Hawthorn boundary, hunting for Wanderers. It was Jed's idea. Come on, he called down. Who's coming up next? He was balanced in the tallest tree, legs dappled by the leaves and the sun, looking like he was wearing camouflage. The branches rippled in the heat. Me and Trig and Lindy all squinted up. Look, Jed pointed south, past the red-berried hawthorn. Grandad Cruise's watch glinted on his wrist. I can see for miles. My heart kudunk, kudunk, kudunked under my t-shirt. Can you see any Wanderers? Trig shaded his eyes with both hands. Course not. Not yet, said Jed. We've got to watch and wait. He was really high. My stomach swelled just looking at him. Do you think the mayor will give us a reward? I shaded my eyes too. You know, if we find one, will she read our names out in assembly? Jed laughed. You're never going to spot one, Maggie. You're just a middler. You're too scared to even climb up here. Yeah, you're always too scared of anything. Lindy elbowed me and Trig out of the way. Watch out, Jed. I'm coming up next. Jed grinned. It was his idea of heaven, sitting on a branch with Lindy all to himself. She walked between the two graves set under the tree. The headstones had ancient names carved into them: William Whittington and Georgina Millicent Cruz. Georgina Millicent Cruz was my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Funny how the cemetery smelled of grass and soil and sap-laden trees, when actually we were surrounded by old dead relatives. Lindy got a knotty handhold on the trunk and found somewhere to put her foot first. She pulled herself up and found a second foothold, then a third, a fourth, a fifth. She didn't have shorts on like me. She was wearing a stupid white dress that showed her underwear, even if she just climbed over a stile. She was nearly up to Jed. My mouth went dry. They were right. I was scared. Of climbing. Of hunting for wanderers. Of everything. So what, though? So what? We were never going to find one anyway. Jed held out his hand to Lindy. She grabbed it. She leaned away from the trunk and let go with her other hand. Her foot slipped on the dry bark. Their hands slid apart. Her stupid dress blew up around her waist. She bounced head first off the William Whittington gravestone and landed on the ground, with blood all over her face. She lay there, still as you like. The sound her head made on the gravestone replayed itself in my ears. Crunk, like being whacked with a brick. Crunk. Her pants were white with little blue flowers on them. Forget-me-nots. I stepped forwards and pulled her dress down. Wasn't right for the boys to be seeing all that. No one screamed. No one shouted. Jed said something unrepeatable, but he said it really, really quiet, like his voice had been squashed by the shock. Then he half scrambled, half jumped up and down from the tree. He tried pulling Lindy up, but he couldn't lift her. Her blood got all over his hands. He pushed his hair out of his eyes and left a messy red stripe across the side of his head. Lindy, he said in his squashed voice. Lindy, Lindy, Lindy. She's dead, I said. No, she's not. She can't be, said Jed. We have to do something. And we all stood there, all three of us Cruz kids, looking down at Lindy Chowdhury with her white dress and her blood face and long dark hair spread out on the grass. You have to check if she's breathing. It was Trig who can't even hop or run or tie proper reef knots. If she's not, you have to breathe for her. First aid, we did it in school, remember, ages ago. He swallowed. And one of us has to run for help. Jed knelt down next to Lindy. I'm not leaving her. You go, Maggie. Me? Quick, Maggie, you've got to run. So I ran. I ran through the cemetery, leaping over the old Parker graves and the Stanbury ones too, grass whipping at my ankles. I ran down the edge of the Andersons' field. Tiny black thunderbugs flew into my eyes, but I didn't stop to scrape them out. I just blinked and kept on running. At the bottom of the field, I jumped over the sun-dried mud ridges and didn't even trip once. I skimmed round the side of the old caravan park, south of the town, all the time shouting, Help! Help! Dr. Sanita! I grabbed gobfuls of hot woolly air. I shouted for Mrs. Chowdhury too. Mrs. Chowdhury! Mrs. Chowdhury! I leapt across the allotments between courgettes, rhubarbs, tomatoes. What is it, girl? I stopped so quick I nearly fell over. It was Elsie Weather, kneeling in the strawberry beds. Just my luck. What is it, girl? What's wrong? She used her stick to help her up. She had 2 old sponges strapped to her knees with elastic bands. It's Lindy Chowdhury. I need to get help. Wait, girl. Perhaps old Elsie can be of use. She brushed some earth off her knee sponges. I have to be quick. Lindy hit her head. She fell out of a tree. She's not moving. I clattered out sentences in the wrong order, glancing over towards the town. Elsie Weather swapped her stick from one unsteady hand to the other, reached into her pocket and brought out a hanky. She coughed into it like she was coughing up her insides. My legs quivered, ready to run. Lindy Chowdhury. She refolded her hanky. Her fingernails were thick and yellow. An eldest, isn't she? The sun spilled over Elsie's shoulder straight into my eyes. Yes, but I've got to hurry, Mrs. Weather. I've got to go. Wait, Cruz girl. She reached forwards and grabbed my hand. How old is she, this Lindy? Her thumb bone pressed hard into my palm. I tried to pull away. How long till she goes to camp? Mrs. Weather, I don't have time. She pulled me towards her, breathed into my face. I coughed. How old is she? How long till she goes to camp? It was Lindy's 14th 2 nights ago. Everyone was there, even Elsie. She can't have forgotten, can she? She's 14. She's going on Saturday. I pulled my hand right away out of her grip. Her thumbnails scraped my skin. I'm sorry, Mrs. Weather. I've got to go. I'm sorry. There's a storm coming. She grabbed at me again. I ran, away from Elsie, away from the caravans over to the town. The Parker brothers were coming out of Frog Alley. Robbie, Neil, Griff and Lyle, all thick beards and rolled up sleeves. Help! I called out. Help! We need help! I'm going to stop there. That's the end of chapter 2 there. So I'm just going to explain a little bit. So Lindy is also an eldest, so she's 14 like Jed. And when they're 14, they go away to camp to help for the Quiet War. And they were all climbing a tree on the boundary of the town, and they've been told not to cross that boundary. So what they're doing is they're climbing the tree to go and look for the wanderers. And Maggie's very, very scared, but Lindy's fallen out of the tree and she's banged her head. So Maggie has been sent to go and ask for some help.